anybody else been a fan of Paul Rudd since the very beginning? Now, I was looking back a ways recently, trying to figure out just when Paul Rudd became a household name. And I think it's pretty easily, from the film Anchorman, meaning that after this...
60% of the time, it works every time.
That doesn't make sense.
He was Paul Rudd. And, not the guy from 40-Year-Old Virgin or Clueless or whatever. But for those with the same disposition of film and TV that I have, well, you may have known the boy as Paul Rudd for much longer than that. So I had my plateau, so to speak, just after years of relevancy yet obscurity, but before superstardom definitely lays Paul Rudd's roles that put him on the map, so to speak, even though, he was in many high-profile films and TV roles before that. And I, for one, thought he would remain in that bubble for, the entirety of his career, but I was wrong, rightfully so. But that certain era of early Paul Rudd greatness is one to write home about for sure. This generation of actors gave us many standout performers, and that twinkle in Mr. Rudd's eyes, well, that was present from day one, trust me. And the early career of Paul Rudd makes for an interesting and sometimes telling tale of film discovery. Let's go back in time. No, further than that. Yeah, there you go. Join Staunch TV as we look back at the early career of Paul Rudd. Rudd's earliest roles, after his gaming days and appearances in other commercial spots, they started in small parts in TV shows and TV movies alike. He appeared in a show with Craig T. Nelson called The Fire Next Time. And, I couldn't find any trailers or footage of this one. Although after a few weeks and a few deep dives into the dark side of the internet, I actually did. And in turn, I managed to find the very first appearance of Paul Rudd on film. Nah, I'm just kidding. I couldn't find much on this one, but he did appear in it, and his next role would indeed be a beefier one. This time as the best friend type in the cheesy, spastic, made-for-TV flick called Moment of Truth, Stalking Back.
I don't want to talk about that.
One of those, true story made-for-TV movies, as this was indeed based on a true story, of 14-year-old Larissa Anello being stalked by her Little League umpire. Yeah, it's a strange watch. It's worth it for Paul Rudd's 90s pony nub, though. Now, to be honest, I don't remember the show or the movie when it premiered, as they kind of just... But the following year, in 1994, indeed had me yelling at my screen, "Hey, it's that dude from the Super Nintendo commercial!" That movie being, of course, Joe Dante's 50s teen rebel remake, Runaway Daughters, part of the Showtime film series Rebel Highway. Now, I've covered one of these movies before, The Cool and the Crazy, and did a pretty deep dive into that one. Check that out right up there. And I intend on covering my favorite of the bunch, Robert Rodriguez's Road Racers. Y'all want to see that? Let me know. The Rebel Highway series was produced by Showtime and showcased genre directors remaking 50s like teen or, car or rebel movies, most of the time just by using the title, though. And here we get one hell of an early performance from Rudd in what is obviously a low-budget cheese fest, but done in that strange, charming Joe Dante style. And these movies all kind of have a weirdo umbrella over them anyways, all kind of feeling like, the era of the 50s, that is, in their own special ways. I highly recommend the Rebel Highway series. We have one hell of a cast here, too. Along with Rudd, we also get Jenny Lewis, Dick Miller, Joe Flaherty, Dee Wallace, Holly Fields, Chris Young, Leo Rossi, Roger Corman, Courtney Gaines, Michael Coppola, and more. Here's a quick synopsis of the movie. Angie, Mary, and Laura are tired of the same old 50s suburbia routine. The three guy-crazy girlfriends take to the road in a stolen car, trying to track down one of their ex-lovers before he leaves for the Navy, ending up in a heap of trouble. And, the film really is a lot of fun, kind of playing out like a bizarre episode of Tales from the Crypt or something. God bless the Rebel Highway series. Or, the Young and Reckless series, as it was called overseas. Another thing that these movies really did was give a lot of really great actors early leading roles, which, not just Paul Rudd, but like, for instance, in The Cool and the Crazy, we had an early performance from Jared Leto, too. And this must have been a strange time for Rudd. Being in and out of TV movies and TV shows. And I mean, working with Joe Dante that early on must have been pretty badass. But of course, the safest route was probably to stick with TV, and, well, that's what he did. I'd love to find out about the shows he didn't get. But what he did manage to rustle up was a would-be successful series, Wild Oats.
Yeah, and instead of sitting around whining, I'm working.
One of those, sexy 20-something shows. Yeah, you know what I mean. I say would-be success because, well, it wasn't successful at all. It lasted like 6 weeks or something. But it was undeniable. Paul Rudd was here to stay, as he would then join the actually kind of successful show Sisters. And for what I found, he wound up leaving the show to film his parts in both Halloween 6 and Clueless. And supposedly he shot those movies simultaneously. Ain't that some shit? Which, if you look at it, is a crazy feat. I mean, Tommy Doyle and Josh are two completely different characters. That's pretty badass to pull off. And he even dips into a potential horror movie career with part 6 of a well-established horror franchise, being the second actor to take on the role of Tommy Doyle. Must have been nerve-wracking. That story short, Rudd was an amazing Tommy Doyle. Rudd would have been awesome in horror movies. Rudd. And again, what risky roles taken by Rudd early on. Now being in actual, film roles, not just TV movies, right off the bat, he lands the role of Josh alongside Alicia Silverstone in what was assured to be classic. But the role of Josh wasn't an easy one to snag. I guess I'm assuming with his boyish good looks, he was going to land a role either way, but he auditioned for 3 different characters before getting the role of Josh, the former stepbrother with cruel intentions. And did you know that when Paul Rudd did finally land the role of Josh, he was mugged and his script was stolen? That's not funny. And it's pretty obvious that this was his breakout role. Although, his household name status wasn't reached yet. By this point in his career, I was like, hell yeah, the Super Nintendo guy is coming up. And holy shit, Tommy Doyle is in Clueless. My man Rudd was on his way. And, what else really is left to say about Clueless? I mean, I fucking love that movie. More on Paul Rudd's Clueless adventures later. Soon after the sleeper hit Clueless, it looks like a film that he shot earlier, like before that, was finally released. I'm not sure, though. He just looks a bit more youthful in the film The Size of Watermelons that came out the following year. Which is something we always see, even with Paul Rudd. He shot Halloween 6 first, but not until the release of Clueless was it put out. Surely to try and capitalize on his bludgeoning teen heartthrob status. Anyways, this movie, The Size of Watermelons, it's a weird one. It's a pretty tough watch as well. I mean, the synopsis goes, Alex is the definition of loser. He has no, nor has ever had friends. His life has no direction, and he has a stupid haircut. While attending a Venice Beach art school, he meets Lizzie, Patrick, and Gnome, who become his friends. When Alex figures out he should make a movie, he decides to do an alternative political documentary in black and white about Gnome's struggle to free Hawaii. He hires some brain-dead film students and meets the girl of his dreams, and he's ready to make his movie. Until the first scheduled shooting date when Gnome, who has the budget, turns up missing. Yeah, it's about as boring as it sounds, trust me. And, the sky is always gorgeous, and I do like Marissa Ribisi, but this flick is a mess. It's on YouTube. Go see for yourself. Then, my man finally started to get some respect on his name when Baz Luhrmann cast him in the ensemble Romeo and Juliet, which featured an all-star cast of up-and-coming young actors, and Paul Rudd got what is possibly the best scene in the whole damn movie. And god damn, this flick holds up great. What a first 20 minutes, I swear. I feel like people forget. And while Rudd's presence was short-lived on the film, he still made quite an impact with those dreamy eyes of his. Oh, and we also have Paul Rudd to thank for Titanic, apparently. On Paul Rudd's last day of the shoot, on Romeo and Juliet, that is, Leo casually mentioned that he'd been considering a lead in a studio film called Titanic. Well, apparently Paul Rudd's dad is like a big ship guy, and therefore Paul Rudd knew everything there was to know about the Titanic, and encouraged Leo to take the role. So Paul Rudd was in Romeo and Juliet, one of the most successful films of the year. What's he to do next? Well, go back to the well, of course. And that's what Rudd did. Kinda. As he returned to the wacky world of Clueless, but this time as a totally different character in the TV version of the movie. A TV series that has honestly grown on me. I think I may cover this series run eventually. Y'all want to see that? Let me know. I don't know. I want to do that. I was surprised. I mean, Amy Heckerling came back to write and produce and even directed the pilot. And a lot of the cast, well, sans Alicia Silverstone, even returned, and although most of that changed as the show went on, I'd still recommend a good handful of episodes. And that's not to say that other stars didn't return as well. We also saw the return of Breckin Meyer and even Brittany Murphy. Although, yeah, they were different characters, but whatever. None of them really got a story arc quite like Paul Rudd's new character did, that's for sure.
How old are you?
I just turned 16.
Now, all the while, Paul Rudd would appear in plays, on and off Broadway, along some major talents, really working that acting muscle whenever he was able, and still taking on varying film roles. Aside from appearing in an adaptation of The Last Night in Ballyhoo, that year, 1997, also saw Rudd take on another strange role as Earl in a bizarre, weird little movie called The Locusts. This is a weird one indeed, with an all-star cast to boot. And it really plays out exactly how it's supposed to, as a kind of American Gothic, sexy drama thriller thingy. I don't know. Not sure what they were going for here, to be honest. But it's shot well. And if you know anything about this flick, you know there's a certain shocking scene involving animal cruelty. And, pretty hard to watch. Paul Rudd's barely in it, too, really. And again, not sure exactly what they were going for here. It's a pretty odd flick. The next year would again see Paul Rudd land another co-leading role with a standout co-star in Road Trip. Wait, actually, I mean Overnight Delivery, a teen sex road comedy. Teen sex road comedy, that's it. In the flick, we see four college buddies embark on a road trip to retrieve an illicit tape mistakenly mailed to a female friend. Shit, wait, that's Road Trip again. Hold on, okay. Here we go. In Overnight Delivery, Paul Rudd plays Wyatt, who writes an angry letter to his girlfriend via overnight delivery, and with the help of a stripper played by Reese Witherspoon, he tries to get the letter off the delivery truck within the next 24 hours. Man, that's just like... these two movies do play out very similar when you think about it. Overnight Delivery came out first, though, so suck it, MTV Films. From the director of Biodome, too, that's pretty badass. The movie also features Dr. Giggles and Jigsaw, who here plays a serial killer, go figure. And it's not a bad time, really. It's kind of a funny movie. Reese Witherspoon is quite the looker here. And I think I'm going to touch more on this film later, as there is a pretty interesting backstory involving Kevin Smith, of all people. Stay tuned to that one. I think I'm going to do some Kevin Smith videos soon. As for Paul Rudd in Overnight Delivery, well, he definitely makes more of the role than he really needed to. He really went for like a more slapstick animated style of comedy here, and it's interesting to see. And he really pushes that all shucks kind of dumb guy routine a bit too much here, but again, it all kind of works. This one came out straight to video, I think. And good thing for Rudd, he was getting this practice with these kind of romantic comedies, because he would next land what would definitely be his most high-profile role at the time. This time, co-starring for the first time with Jennifer Aniston. And for better or worse, they really do have some chemistry, as we would see later on again in Friends and films like Wanderlust and so on. The film, of course, being The Object of My Affection, which is a kind of watered-down role reversal take on Chasing Amy, ironically. In the film, a pregnant New York City social worker begins to develop romantic feelings for her gay best friend, and decides she'd rather raise her child with him, much to the dismay of her overbearing boyfriend. And it's really a by-the-numbers dramedy of the time, a sweet little movie, if you will. Steve Zahn's in it, too, which is always a great sign. And Paul Rudd really proved he could carry his own in these studio pictures. I, for one, remember this one being pretty big on video. Like, our local video store had all the ads and the cardboard cutout thing and whatnot. So I guess it'd be safe to say that this would be the end of Paul Rudd's early career. I mean, co-starring in a 20th Century Fox film with Jennifer Aniston. I mean, come on. He was co-starring in a studio picture. And shit, the trailer had a Counting Crows song in it. You know you made it when that happens. But I still think that he was in the tail end of his early career. Even so, he would appear in some high-profile flops like 200 Cigarettes, a movie that I cannot stand, but I promise to cover as part of my MTV Films review series. I'll get to that one eventually, I guess, but I really think this one is a shit turkey. The whole cast, especially Paul Rudd, is just obnoxious as hell in this mess. Luckily, he would also appear in other high-profile hits, like The Cider House Rules, and appear in television movies like the made-for-TV adaptation of The Great Gatsby. And again on TV in Strangers with Candy, and a show called Deadline with Oliver Platt that totally, like, it really existed apparently. I don't know. But the next year, the year 2000, would see Paul Rudd pull the ultimate movie star move and take on a high-paying gig overseas as evil Ian Curtis in the film Gen Y Cops, where Paul Rudd kicks ass. Look at this dude. What a badass. He even ad-libbed one of the best lines ever muttered in cinema.
Roseanne Barr Arnold be president of the United States of America before you two punks see the light of day.
And as for the early career of Paul Rudd, well, in my opinion, it comes to an official end with the release of Wet Hot American Summer. Again, a film I was never able to sit through, sadly, as I was never partial to director David Wayne. I don't know, people tell me I should try again. I do want to see the sequel, too. I think that was a good idea. And maybe I'll give those movies a shot and see how that all plays out, I guess. I don't know. I'll try again. I think this was the first kind of new cult classic from Rudd that people really got to rally behind, you know? And makes for something that actors try for the whole careers that they never really get to achieve. Most actors don't have this movie early on with the kind of rabid fan base and kind of love that this one got pretty much organically. Again, though, I just don't care for David Wayne's style of filmmaking. Like, seriously, aside from this piece of shit, I'd say David Wayne is responsible for directing Paul Rudd in his worst movie to date, that being The 10. But whatever, Role Models still makes me chuckle. And yeah, I guess that's it. We can always count on Paul to change it up here and there and always pull through in literally any movie he's cast in. And while I may not always be a fan of the movies he's in, I'm always a fan of Paul Rudd. And he's in more than one of my favorite comfort movies, if I'm being completely honest, as I'm sure is the case with a lot of other enlightened minds. Thanks for everything, Paul Rudd. You're a pretty cool dude. What are your favorite Paul Rudd movies? Let me know down in the comments. And please, give this video a like. Right now, just hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed. Hit that notification bell. And let me know whose early career I should touch on next. This is Staunch TV. Thank you for joining me.